Okay, so welcome to Pokemon Trading Card Game. It's a pretty fun game that I used to play when I was little, and I hope you guys all enjoy it as well. So we're going to get started here with a new game, and let's go with the name quick. Alright. Raging is crazy about Pokemon and Pokemon card collecting. One day, Raging heard a rumor: the legendary Pokemon cards. The extremely rare and powerful cards held by Pokemon trading card game's greatest players. The Grandmasters are searching for one to inherit the legend. Dreaming of inheriting the legendary Pokemon cards, Raging visits the Pokemon card researcher, Dr. Mason. Okay. Now, why the rush, Raging? What? You want to learn how to play the Pokemon trading card game? So you too finally want to start playing the card game. Well, dueling is more fun than just collecting cards. First, you should try playing with a practice deck. Here, I'll give you this deck. And now you'll need an opponent. Hey, Sam, play with him for a while. Yes, Dr. Mason. Hello, Raging. Okay, let's give it a try. Hey, Raging, hurry and come here. Alright, so here's your first option of choosing what will happen in the game. I will actually skip all this because I've played this game many times before, and I will actually explain this as I go along so you don't have to worry about it. Is that all? Yes. They say that actions speak louder than words, so let's play a game. Since this is your first time, just try and learn the basic steps. I'll be coaching you, so follow my advice. If you don't do as I say, you won't be able to proceed. It might be easier to read the Pokemon Trading Card Game instruction booklet while we play. Okay then, let's start your practice game. Heck Sam. Sam's practice deck. Since this is just practice, do not shuffle the deck. Each player will draw 7 cards. So, welcome to the tutorial of the game. And the tutorial of the game is pretty straightforward. They make you follow exact steps so that you can win the game. So you're going to have to actually listen and choose what each step is, otherwise you're gonna have to start over from that previous step. So, in other words, what we want to do here is actually do everything they say. I know it's annoying, but it's just how things are. Now, they're going over the basics of how to play the game. This is the first instance of a coin flip. If you get heads, you play first. If you get tails, you go second. You always get to press the coin flip. You never have to worry about that. Besides that, there aren't really too many other things to talk about when going through this tutorial. So they're showing how to attack, how to play the game. Now, obviously, this is a Pokemon spin-off, and it's based on the first, I believe, 3 expansion sets of the original Pokemon trading card game. The trading card game back then was actually fairly simple. It wasn't too complex like it is now, but there were a lot of broken things about this game. So, way back in the day, you didn't have this one turn supporter that you can only play once per turn like there is now. So this could allow for some pretty broken combos pretty quickly. You also had to, I think, have 60 cards in the deck in order to actually make this happen. So, when it comes to this game, I think you only have to do, I think it is 40 cards? I don't entirely remember. And then the game itself is actually pretty straightforward. It's really easy to play. It's a good time waster if you have it. You can buy this game off of the Nintendo 3DS shop. It's there for, I believe, only now $5. It wasn't there previously. So, if you want to play this game, you now can on just your 3DS. You don't have to get a Game Boy or get an emulator. So I know you might want to be tempted to press Waterfall here because it just does more damage and it's quicker. But you don't want to do that simply because it's not as the prompt commanded you to. Which is kind of dumb, but whatever. So whenever you knock out a Pokemon, you'll have 2 cards from your deck removed, or however many cards there are for the prize pile when you play the game. Whenever you knock out a Pokemon, you take a card from that prize pile and add it directly to your hand. So if you think of it like that, think of it as an instant draw from your deck. It's a +1 whenever you knock out another person's Pokemon. So here, we're about to end his Eradicate here. The cards are actually reflective of how they were used in the game way back then, and how powerful they were back then. So, as you can see, Eradicate level 41, 60 HP, that's in a evolved form. You wouldn't see that nowadays. You might see the basic card with that. In the newer games, because they've had that little power creep happen effect, where slowly as more and more sets come out, the cards that come out are going to be more and more powerful, thus making the game much thicker, to say the least. In this game, they actually did the reverse on Pokemon because some of these old cards were so broken that could be in combination of the newer cards that they actually decided to instead ban cards from older sets. That's not something you usually see. And because it's something you don't usually see, it's very unfamiliar territory to most people about how this game can be broken, and it's through the use of trainer cards. Now, a lot of the trainer cards didn't have any of the small text like supporter or anything like any resistances to not do it besides. And this is what happens when you don't do it correctly. So you add the water energy to Staryu, and this is what I was talking about when it actually don't follow the steps, and if you don't actually follow the steps, they actually make you start the whole phase over at the last previous step. So this is why this duel is usually very painful to go through at first, because you can't actually do your own combos. You have to follow the ones that they do exactly. And of course, they always have this text option, and you cannot speed through the text just yet, unless you are playing on an emulator. At that point, you're also skipping frames and things like that. So, here you have the Star Freeze, what they instructed you to do. You're always going to get a heads here, you're always going to paralyze the Machop. You don't have to worry about it. Everything in this duel is scripted, and that's why they make you go through the game the way they make you go through the game. Now, for your winning conditions of the game, you can have pretty much two. One, your opponent will run out of benched Pokemon, or you will draw all of your prize cards. When that condition is met, either one of them, you win the game, or you will lose the game depending on how the game is going. If your opponent knocks out all your prize Pokemon and they take all the prize cards, they win. Just how it is in the Pokemon game that is now in the meta. You try and knock out as many of your opponent's Pokemon as there are prizes. That's the gist of it. If you don't understand something, talk to Sam. It might be helpful to practice again too. This time it was just practice, so I had you follow everything I said, but there are other styles of play, so start them out by choosing the normal duel. Okay. Now then, let's build your deck. Did you bring your cards? Raise your hand and his cards in. Let me add some of my own cards to yours. Now, Rajan, what kind of deck do you want? Please select the deck you want. So, there are 3 basic decks you get to choose in the beginning of the game. Charmander and Friends deck, which is fire, obviously fire-based oriented, but doesn't just have fire-type cards. You have Squirtle and Friends deck, and you have Bulbasaur and Friends deck. They all follow the same idea. One will give you leaf energy, one will give you water energy, and one will give you fire energy. Now, they will also be paired with a bunch of common cards that will float in between them. Bulbasaur and Friends, I think, get the Nidoran. Squirtle get the Staryu. Charmander, I think, gets a Growlithe. Really, this will determine the course of the path that you will take and what gym order you do in order to get the game moving faster. Now, obviously, the best deck to choose, in my opinion, is always Squirtle and Friends deck. The Squirtle and Friends deck makes the game go by faster because not only do you get most of the cards for one of the decks you're going to be playing by the end of the game, it's also one of the setups to one of the most powerful decks in the game. However, it makes the game really, really short, and you really don't get to see too many other decks that you would otherwise be playing, and you wouldn't get in every video you would always see just me playing the same deck. And the Charmander and Friends deck eventually loops around to this much faster than the Bulbasaur and Friends deck. The Bulbasaur and Friends deck is actually probably the slowest way to go through the game, but it's also one of the funner ways to go through the game, and so that's why I'm going to choose the Bulbasaur and Friends deck. Yes. Okay, a Bulbasaur and Friends deck. Here are the remaining cards. You get the Bulbasaur and Friends deck. You receive 30 cards. You should duel with many different people. Why don't you go to one of the card clubs? There are many people playing at the clubs. Collect new cards and try building a new deck. Okay, so first things first, you do not want to do that like any good game. You will actually want to know how to save. Going into the diary, you're going to press it, and you're going to press yes, and that is how you save. Your status is just pretty much a trainer card from Pokemon, if you ever played that. Now, if we look at the Bulbasaur and Friends deck, we can actually modify it. So we get 2 Bulbasaurs, 1 Ivysaur, 1 Venusaur, 2 Caterpie, 1 Metapod. You get the Nidorans, Nidorinos, and Tangalas. You have a Flareon. You get some water-type Pokemon in here, so you're not dead in the water. You have a Jigglypuff. You get some basic normal cards. You get some really, really good, interesting trainer cards. However, there is something you should know, and that is that I despise Full Heal in this game. You want to take him out and replace it with a Bill. That is going to be the first thing you want to do. The next thing here is that we don't have any lightning, fighting, or psychic energy type Pokemon in the deck, so you do not want to actually put these cards in the deck. So, we're going to save. Yep. Okay, so when it comes to giving the options here, you can confirm, which means you just simply say, yes, this is the deck I want to use. Modify is I want to alter my deck. I want to change the name of my deck. We're going to leave it as Bulbasaur and Friends for now. We want to save the fact that I modified this deck. I want to dismantle the deck completely. That means all the cards. It simply resets you to a 0-card format, and now you get to go in straight from the get-go. It's usually much faster than modify when you want to build a whole new deck completely. So, the first thing I'm going to be doing is playing a real game with an opponent here named Aaron, or in some cases, Aaron. And so you want to duel him because he has a pack of energy cards. And this is an important step for later for a very important trade because you're going to need a lot of extra energy. Now, in order to do this, you don't want to really get rid of all the energy that you have because the energy that you have is going to be needed for a bunch of other decks that you're going to get later on because when you go fight the clubs, you're only going to get that club's type of energy. So, you want to pick a deck that you want to go against here. So I would want to go against not the Lightning and Fire deck, obviously, and probably not the Water and Fighting, but the Grass and Psychic is just as bad. So let's go against the Water and Fighting deck. And so let's do this again. I sped it up there because I accidentally pressed no. That was my mistake. So Water and Fighting deck, yes. Okay, let's start on a 4-prize match. So this is the first time you can actually lose. And this is the problem why sometimes I might recommend this game for emulator if you plan on like playing it in class or something. It gets really, really slow. So we're first gonna play Nidoran Male because I have a green energy, and we're gonna drop Seal on the bench there. Okay, that's all we can do. Okay, I play first. Which is good. You always want to kind of go first, because going first will always give you an advantage. It always gives you the advantage of attacking first. Attacking on the first turn. Now, I play Pokeball here because it lets me choose a basic Pokemon from my deck or an evolutionized Pokemon. So I have Nidoran. Do I have a Nidorino in here? I do. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Nidorino. Alright. Okay, great. This is great luck to begin with in the beginning of the game. And this is what we like to go, weaknesses and strengths. So, you can resist, which used to be called strength, back in the day, attacks so that they would do much less damage. Each card was different. Most weaknesses are ×2 back in the day. So, usually, if you have a ground-type Pokemon, a grass-type will actually do double damage. Same thing if it was a rock-type Pokemon in the Pokemon card game format, so the grass damage will do 2 times damage. If it's a fire-type, a water-type attack will do 2 times damage. A fire goes 2 times usually against grass. Those are the 3 things you need to learn. Resistance-wise, you can have -30 on certain cards. Most of the time, though, it's usually only -20. There are rare instances where it's -30, and I'll be getting to those when we come across them. So I'm going to choose a prize card here. I got Goldeen. Not terrible, but not great. So he's going to draw here. Place his Seal. Okay. Water Gun. That Water Gun can get really, really nasty. We don't want that to happen. So hopefully I get an energy here. I drew Bulbasaur. That is the exact opposite of what I wanted. Okay. I'm going to put plus power on my Nidoran. That increases the damage done by 10. So that will allow me to knock out this Poliwag. Oh, and Poliwag has a grass weakness instead of an electric one. That's very interesting. Professor Oak. That's a great card in this deck right now. Simply because I don't have the cards that I need. Bill is the most OP card in the game, I promise you that. Energy Search, great card. He's playing correctly. He's not doing too bad. He's going to attack with Headbutt. Gonna take some damage here, but that's okay. Okay, Water Energy. I'm gonna actually put it on Nidoran Male. I'm gonna evolve it into Nidorino. I'm then gonna go use Professor Oak. Yes, I'm getting rid of Venusaur, which goes to my Bulbasaur, but I really don't care because I need energy. Energy is the most important resource in this deck so far. I'll play Eevee because I have a Vaporeon in my hand. And I can't do anything just yet, so I'll end my turn. He's going to use Energy Search here. And he's just going to use Headbutt. Alright. Alright, so on Nidorino, I'm going to do Double Kick here. Because that's all I can do, but that's a good heads, and a double heads. Alright, so this duel went pretty much perfectly in my favor. And I will draw a prize card, but no Pokemon cards in his play arena, even though I didn't have any more prizes left. I still won because he had no Pokemon able to be played. So you get a pack of only energy cards, which is very, very useful, to say the least. So what you want to do here is you're going to save. Now, I am actually going to edit out all the times I go through this duel. I recommend you go through this duel at least 3 or 4 times in order to get all the energies. Alright, and next time on Pokemon Trading Card Game, we'll be going to the first club.